many of you here are Netflix fans? You watch Netflix? I got one. Anybody else? I got 2, 3, 4. A couple Netflix folks. Netflix, I'm gonna be honest, I feel like it's starting to fall off. I really do. I seem to just see the same things in rotation every time I get on Netflix. However, they released a movie recently that kind of got some mixed reviews. I was reading up on it, and the actor and actress who are starring in that movie, because it really just follows 2 people. There's only 2 people in this movie. I didn't think it was possible to make a movie where there's no one else but 2 people. There are 2 people in this movie. One of them is a young lady by the name of Zendaya. She's famous from being on the Disney Channel, a lot of their shows and movies, etc. The other one is Denzel Washington's son. Denzel Washington's son plays her love interest in this movie. And it's a very interesting movie. It's called Malcolm and Marie. Now, just in the name, it really doesn't seem like anything extraordinary, but my wife and I decided to tune in and see what all the buzz was about when it came to Malcolm and Marie. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think it was a phenomenal movie. My wife disagrees with me, but I think it was an amazing movie. Now, the reason she doesn't really like it, and a lot of the critics didn't really like it, because what you're watching in this movie is about a 2-hour-long argument between this couple. That's it. That's the whole premise of the movie. They are just arguing back and forth. And every time you think the argument is over, one of them comes back with another argument. I mean, there's at least 5 or 6 times in that movie where you're like, finally it's over, something else is about to happen, and then one of them will come from the other room or way across the other side of the house or all the way outside and start the argument up again. But what I love about this movie is you begin to see the dynamics of so many different relationships in this movie. I even saw myself in there a couple of times as this man was wrestling with some insecurities that he had, wrestling with some things in his relationship that he was struggling with. I believe it's a great movie, and it reveals a lot about ourselves. But there was something in particular that stood out to this movie. There was this quote that really jumped out to me and made me begin to examine this logic that Marie was bringing to the table. There's a point in the movie where Marie brings up the fact that Malcolm isn't really that jealous. And it starts off somewhat as a compliment. She says, you know what, I'm glad you're not a jealous guy. But then she goes on to say, but my trouble is that sometimes I believe your lack of jealousy is actually the presence of indifference. That it's not that you're just not jealous, but you don't think I can do better than you. Now, this then spawns off into a whole nother argument. Now, I will warn you, if you're going to get on Netflix and watch this movie, I hope your ears are holy. I hope your ears can handle a little profanity, because it is a cuss fest. I mean, they are tearing each other new ones throughout this whole movie. I start to wonder, how in the world are they even together, the way they are just verbally abusing each other? But they're highlighting the reality of many people's relationships. There are people who talk to each other like that in their relationships and or marriages. And so this conversation of him not being jealous, but possibly being indifferent, then spawns off to the quote that I want to share with you today. She says, I value mystery, the unknown. It's what supports the tension of a relationship. And listen to this. It forces us to be the best version of ourselves. The what if factor. I'm going to say that again. I value mystery, the unknown. It's what supports the tension of a relationship, and it forces us to be the best version of ourselves. The what if factor. Now, to help y'all out and give some context to this quote, what happens and where this comes in is at a certain point in the movie, Malcolm starts sharing with her all the other women that he's had before her, because he thinks that she's consumed by this movie that he made that is all about her, that this was inspired by her, that was inspired by her, and he's trying to get her to know, no, you're not the only woman I've been with. But it comes off kind of smug. It comes off really disrespectful as he begins going through the graphic details of previous relationships that he had. And so what she's saying here is, you know what? I I respected you more when I didn't know about all these females. Why? Because it gave a mystery to you. This is what she's saying. It made me wonder, have you ever been with a woman who's more beautiful than me? It makes me wonder, have you ever been with a woman who loved you more than me? It made me wonder, have you ever been with a woman who gave you more than me? I value the mystery, the unknown, because watch this. It made me want to be the best version of myself for you. What she's saying in simple terms is a little bit of jealousy may be a good thing. Now, some of you are saying, Pastor Mike, I don't know about that. I can't see jealousy being a good thing. Well, if you read the same text that I just read in any other translation, yours did not end with these words. Never worship them or serve them, because I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am Elkanah. It ended with these words: I am a jealous God. I am a jealous God. This made me begin to wonder, God, why are you jealous? What would make you jealous? I couldn't wrap my mind around why would God be jealous. But as I began to explore this concept of the what if factor, and if I were to give today's sermon a title, it would be just that, the what if factor. As I began to explore this, I began to see more and more what God meant. See, first of all, we have to have a proper definition of the word jealousy. Somebody say jealousy. We have this concept that whenever we hear the word jealous or jealousy, we have this idea of a crazy woman busting the windows out of her brother's car and going through his cell phone, or some over-abrasive male pushing up on every man that comes around his woman because it's rooted in insecurity. But as I begin to ask God, why in the world would you be jealous? It doesn't make sense. When I think of what I know jealousy to be, why would you be jealous? What I heard in my spirit is, here's the problem, son. I'm not jealous because I'm insecure. I'm jealous because your choice of anything other than me is an insult. I'm going to say that again. God is not jealous because he's insecure. God is jealous because our alternatives, the things that we choose over God, when we really look at what they are, when we begin to examine what they have to offer, it's really an insult to him. See, I went to Merriam-Webster and I looked up that word jealousy, and I discovered that just being envious and just being insecure is not all that jealousy means. Jealousy also means to be intolerant of competition or unfaithfulness. Write that down. We need to add a new definition to this word jealousy. If you go to Merriam-Webster, you're going to find that the word jealousy also means an intolerance of competition and unfaithfulness. And so when he says, I'm a jealous God, what he's saying is, I'm a God who does not tolerate competition. I'm a God who does not tolerate unfaithfulness. If you're going to be with me, be with me. If you're going to be with me, don't compare me to anything else. In fact, I'm God. Nothing compares to me. If you're going to be with me, I do not tolerate competition. Why? Because there is none. Why is God jealous? I believe that there are three reasons. That God is not jealous, that kind of support this concept of the what-if factor. And I'm crazy enough to believe that after we really explore each and every one of these, then we'll have a decision to make at the end. And I'll tell you what that decision is. But why is God jealous? If you're taking notes, I'm going to give you 3 eyes today. If you're taking notes, why is God jealous? Why is God jealous? The first reason I believe God is jealous is because he's interested in you. God is jealous because he's interested. Somebody say interested. God is interested in you. Now, what do I mean that God is interested in you? God sees value in you. In fact, God is so interested in you, he's more interested than anybody has ever been interested in your life. I would argue that God is more interested in you than you're interested in yourself. Why do I say that? There's a scripture that lets us know that he has numbered the hairs on our head. Now, by show of hands, how many of you know exactly how many hairs are on your head? You've taken the time to go piece by piece and count. Even those of us with longer hair, you don't even know how much hair we have, let alone those of us who have short hair. But God is so interested in you that he knows the very hairs on your head. God is so interested in you that he knows every freckle that you have. God is so interested in you that he knows your thoughts before you think them. God is so interested in you that he knows what you're going to say before you can say it. God is so interested in you that he declared your end from the beginning. God is so interested in you. that he knows everything about you, the good, the bad, the ugly. God is interested in us. Now, what is significant about that? We understand that God is interested in us, and so it's out of that interest that he's a tad jealous about us. But why is that significant? Point number one. The reason it's significant that God is interested in you is because God was interested in you when you were ignorant of him. I'm going to say that again. The reason it's significant that God is interested in you is because God was interested in you when you were ignorant of him. The Bible says this way: while we were yet his enemies, Christ died for us. Christ was chasing us when we were chasing other people. He was running us down when we was running down after other things. God was interested in us when we were ignorant of him. God was good to us when we did not realize how good he was. God was blessing us when we didn't realize how blessed we were. God was keeping us when we didn't realize we were being kept. In other words, I'll say it this way. Some good wisdom I got from a church mother was, don't give somebody you're not married to married benefits. Here's the amazing thing about God. He gave us believer benefits before we were believers. That's the depth of his interest in us. That when we were not paying him any mind, he was paying us all mind. When we were not giving him any attention, he was giving us all the attention. When we were running away from him, he was running after us. He was interested in us when we were ignorant of him. I grew up in a time with what I believe is the best television ever seen. I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, and one of the shows that I grew up on was a show called Family Matters. How many of you are familiar with Family Matters? That's classic TV. You don't get no better than Family Matters. But what's amazing about Family Matters is it started off as a show about this particular family. And there was this extra character by the name of Steve Urkel, who really was just supposed to be an extra. He was not supposed to be anything significant, but the audience so fell in love with Steve that he became the star of the show. And in this show, Steve Urkel took an interest in a young lady by the name of Laura Winslow. Now, the problem is Steve was crazy about Laura, but Laura was crazy about everybody else but Steve. It seemed like the more Steve came after her, the more she would run away. And I'm going to be honest with you, I remember some episodes where it got downright disrespectful between Laura and Steve. She was just blatantly disrespecting this man. But later on, as you begin to watch the show, as you go through the seasons, something amazing begins to happen. And Steve would always have this little catchphrase, "I'm wearing you down, baby. I'm wearing you down." You would hear him say that from time to time. Well, sure enough, he wore her down to the point that in the later seasons of Family Matters, she wanted to marry this brother. By the time you get to the latter end of it, but what it made me think about was, if Laura had known how good Steve was in the beginning, it would have taken so long to get him in the end. If Laura had recognized how much he was giving in the beginning, it wouldn't have taken her all those seasons to enjoy the blessing. How many of us have gone through life living less than what we could have been living because we were ignorant of the God who is chasing us? While we were chasing folks that could buy us flowers, we were running from the God who grew the flowers. While we were chasing after folks who want to give us chocolate, again, we was running from the one who made the cocoa bean. While we was running after folks that could give us jewelry, God was coming after us, and he created the gold, the silver, the diamonds, etc. How many years, how long have we been so ignorant of God that we missed how interested he was? I look back over my life and I begin to think about the things that I went chasing after, knowing that this amazing God, the God of the universe, was chasing after me. And I think, wow, how much better could my life have been if I had recognized how good of a thing was after me? And some of you can testify to that in your actual love lives, because there's some good brothers and some good sisters around you that you put in the friend zone because they were interested in you, but you were ignorant of how amazing they were. And then in hindsight, you see what they grow up to become, and you think, man, I probably should have gave them a chance. I didn't know that they would grow on to be amazing. I didn't know that they would go on to be beautiful. I didn't know that they would go on to be wealthy, but they were interested when you were ignorant. And many of us treat God like Stephen Q. Urkel. He's chasing after us. He's chasing after us. He's giving to us. He's giving to us. He's blessing us and blessing us. But we're running after everything but him. Why is God jealous? He's jealous because he's interested in you while you're ignorant of him. Not only that, but if I can flip that thing, because that one makes you sound like you all that, but God was interested in you before you were interesting. That's the next point. Not only was God interested in you when you were ignorant of him, but God was interested in you before you were interesting. What do I mean? Many of you look great today. Many of you got a little something today. But there's this old song I grew up on by Mike Jones. Back then they didn't want me. Now I'm hot, they all want me. Here's the difference between people and God. God is not impressed by the right now you. God is in love with the back then you. The you that everyone rejected. The you that no one gave time. The you that folks counted out. The you that folks didn't see value in. The you that they didn't think was so beautiful. The you that they thought was broke, busted, can't be trusted, disgusted. That's the you that God loves. God is saying, listen, I'm jealous. Because before your nails were done and your hair was done, before you had a nice lineup, before you had a little money in the bank, before you had a nice car, before you had a nice house, I was chasing after you. And so I'm a little jealous because you're giving time to people who wouldn't give time to you. When I was trying to give you all the time in the world before you had time to give. God was interested in you before you were interesting. And so I think God has a right to be a little jealous, because why would the God who is perfect chase after imperfection? See, I know you think you all had a bag of Doritos today. But if we would all be honest, if we would open up our closet, we got some skeletons in there that we don't want folks to see. But God is so gracious that he loved us through the skeletons. God is so amazing that he loved us through those low moments in our lives. God is so amazing that he loved us in that, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. Why? Because in my dark place, God still loves me. God is still with me, and he'll never leave me or forsake me. God was interested in you before you were interesting. And so he's a little jealous. Not only is he jealous because he's interested in you, but he's jealous because he's invested in you. He's jealous because he's invested. That's the next thought. He's invested in you. So he's jealous because he's interested in you. But he's also jealous because he's invested in you. What do I mean? Again, the Bible lets us know that God so loved the world that he gave his only, somebody say only. He gave his only begotten son. Now this made me begin to think, what would move God to offer everything to people who have nothing to offer? Because if you really think about it, I know you got some money in the bank, you got some Jordans on your feet, you got some fancy nails from the Chinese place. I know you got it going on right now. But if you take inventory of your life, I want you to really consider it. I want you to think about it. What do you have to offer God that's greater than what he's offered you? I'll be the honest one today. There is absolutely nothing in my life. There is nothing in my bank account. There is nothing in my closet. There is nothing on those four wheels outside. There is nothing in my jewelry chest at home. There is nothing that I have that compares to the goodness and the grace that God has given and shared with me. Everything that God has invested in me, it doesn't come close. And so he's a little jealous because he's given so much to people who often give so little. I sat last night in my car as I was making my Valentine's Day runs, and I began to reflect on this thing. We get excited about the fact that God died for us, that God incarnated through Christ. He died for us. But he reminded me of something last night. As I sat reflecting, I realized that in order for him to die, he had to be born. So not only did he die for us, he was born for us. Now, that don't make you get excited because you don't understand God. See, again, we talked about this God who is Elohim, this God who was before the beginning. So what God actually did is not that he just died, but he was born for us. That's significant because God can't be born. See, again, that name Elohim is a name of eternal, which means that God always was. God did not start, God started to start. And so thinking about what God did for us, a God who could not be born and a God who could not die is a God who stepped out of heaven into a woman's womb. I want you to think about that. The universe stepped into a woman's womb. This God who's bigger than everything made himself the smallest for you. He entered a woman's womb so that he could start even though he had already started. And so that he could end even though he's a God who does not have an end. I'm Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. So it's not that God just died for you, but God was born for you. God made something that was impossible for himself possible for you. And this is why I'm not impressed by folks who say, I will climb the highest mountain, I'll swim the farthest sea. No. Can you make the impossible possible? Because there's somebody in heaven who moved all of heaven and earth into a woman's womb for me. There's someone who could not die, who came through a woman, was born so that he might die the worst death for me. I know Prince had that song back in the 80s, I Will Die For You, he was doing the hand motions and all that, but there's really only one who died for you. And not only did he die for you, he didn't stay dead for you, because after he died, he got up. The Baptist brothers like to say it, 3 days later, he got up out that tomb. Nobody loves you so much that they'll die for you, stay in the grave 3 days, get up after that for you, and walk around and go to heaven. That's the God who died for you. He said, I've invested too much. Let's see if I can make this plain. I've never been a gambling man. I've never been to Dover Downs and some of the spots that you all may be familiar with. But I've heard some things about gambling. Some of the mothers are laughing. We just gonna look forward. I've never been a gambling man. I'm not here to condemn nobody who do. Just bring your tithe into the storehouse. But again, never been a gambling man. Never, but I've heard some things. And one of the things that I've heard is when you go and you get a slot machine, that you stay with that slot machine. That you don't just go jumping around to different slot machines. And that intrigued me. I wondered, why not try a whole bunch of different slot machines? And someone made it real plain to me. One of the greatest fears of a person who's been playing the slot machines is that when they get up and go, that someone's going to come behind them, put 1 quarter in or whatever it is they use, and win all the money that they just put in there. That's the greatest fear of someone playing slot machines. Might I argue that that's the greatest fear that God has? That I've poured all these gifts into you, and the devil just going to come behind me and snatch them. That I put all these dreams in you, and the devil just going to come snatch them up. That I put all this love in you, and you just going to pour all that love on some demon out there. That I've given you all of this wealth, and you're going to use it for wickedness. That I've given you all this potential, and the devil's just going to come. And God says, no. I'm going to stick with you. I know I've poured a lot into you, and it seems like I'm not getting out, but I'm a God who has nothing but time. See, I'm so glad that God ain't like us, because eventually we'll run out of money, or in some cases run out of patience with folk, and we'll say, listen, I done poured all I can pour. But God said, I'm going to stay with this thing. I know it's costing me a lot. I know it costs me my son. I know it costs me time. I know it costs me gifts, talents, and abilities. I know it costs me bailing them out of this, that, and this thing. I know it costs me forgiving them of this 1,000,000 times, even though they said last time is my last time. I know it costs so much, and it seems like I'm losing so much. But I refuse to get up off you and let the devil benefit off of everything I done put in you. I'm so glad that God is not like man. That he will stick with what seems to be a losing situation until it turns around. And if we'll be honest, there were many years that we were a losing situation to God. That God was putting a whole lot of stuff on us and won't get nothing back. He couldn't get our attention on Sunday morning. He couldn't get our attention on Wednesday night. He couldn't get our attention here, there, or anywhere. It seems like we were a losing bet. I'm crazy enough to believe that at some points the devil was like some of us. God, you wasting your time. God, I don't know why you keep pouring into this one. God, you know they ain't going to never get right. God, you know they ain't got nothing to offer you. God, you know I already got them. They ain't no turning around right here. But God said, I got nothing but time. I refuse to get up off of this. If I got to keep pouring, if I got to keep giving, if I got to keep sowing, if I got to keep protecting, if I got to keep turning things around, I'm going to keep giving. Because I refuse to get up off them and let you have it. because he's invested in us. God can be a little jealous because he's poured and is still pouring so much into us. And if we'll be honest, we're just like that slot machine. For some of us, we were a gamble. That God was gambling on us, and it was a 50-50 chance we was going to hell and we was going to heaven. But God kept pouring. God kept investing until he finally got us. Why is God jealous? Because he's interested in us. Why is he jealous? Because he's invested in you. But again, last but not least, he's jealous because he's insulted by the alternative. He's interested in you. He's invested in you. But he's also insulted by the alternative. What do I mean? Again, I shared earlier, God's not jealous because he's insecure, but he's jealous because what we settle for is insulting. What do I mean? I read a verse of scripture in Isaiah 44 that I think surmises this. He says, this is what the Lord, the King of Israel, and his Redeemer, the Lord of armies, says. I am the first and I am the last. There is no God but me. Who, like me, can announce the future? Let him say so and make a case before me. Since I have established an ancient people, let these gods declare the coming things and what will take place. Do not be startled or afraid. Have I not told you and declared it long ago? You are my witnesses. Is there any God but me? And I love this part. He said, there is no other rock. I do not know any. The God who knows everything says, I know everything, and one thing I can tell you that I know, ain't nobody like me. The seasoned saints used to sing it this way, can't nobody do me like Jesus. Can't nobody do me like the Lord. Can't nobody do me like Jesus. He's my friend. Can't nobody. This is essentially what he's saying in contemporary culture. Listen, I know all things. I search all things. I created all things. And I can tell you, you can go wherever you want to go, but you will never find a God like me. You will never find a God like me. Why? Because beside me there is none. It goes back to our definition that jealousy is an intolerance of competition or unfaithfulness. As God, I refuse to tolerate competition. Why? Because there is no competition. So anything you raise up in your life beside me will pale in comparison. And for you to choose something that pales in comparison to me is a direct insult to me because I'm God. See, we don't put God in second place because it's not possible for God to be second. And I think we lose that concept. Like it's possible for me to put anything above God. You never put anything above God. You put yourself below him. You will catch that in a moment. There's never a time that I put a relationship above God. I put myself below the standard that's been set. So anytime I choose something outside of the will of God, I'm not putting that above God. I'm lowering my standard. He says, I'm a God who does not tolerate competition. Anything you choose outside of me is an insult. He begins to ask the question, who is like me? Now, y'all know Pastor Mike, I ain't been saved my whole life. There was a time in my life where, I didn't know Jesus and I didn't know a whole bunch of gospel songs. I knew some worldly songs. I knew a little hip hop. I knew a little R&B. And I remember a brother by the name of Keith Sweat. Keith Sweat had a song back in the day. Y'all laughing way too hard. Wait a minute. Keith Sweat had a song back in the day. Now, I do not advise, unless you are married, I do not advise you to go listen to the song that I'm about to tell you about. But the song is called Nobody. And in this song, Nobody, it's an interesting premise in this song because Keith Sweat is asking the woman questions, but before she can answer the questions, he gives her the answer. He says, who can love you like me? And before she can answer, he says, nobody. Who can please you like me? And before she can even open her mouth, he says, nobody. He begins going down this list of scenarios. Who can do this? Who can do that? Nobody. May I argue today that on this Valentine's Day, the Lord is in heaven right now singing a song to you. Who can bless you like me? Nobody. Who can keep you like me? Nobody. Who can protect you like me? Nobody. Who can provide for you like me? Nobody. Who can heal you like me? Nobody. Feel free to put something in there yourself. Who can bring you out like me? Nobody. Who can carry you out like me? Nobody. Who can protect your family like me? Nobody. Who can promote you like me? Nobody. Who can give you peace like me? Nobody. There is nobody that compares to our God. And so whenever we try to choose something over God, we insult him because there's nothing that we can choose over him that's worth choosing. Think about that thing. I'm choosing imperfection over perfection. I'm choosing a God who knows all for somebody who knows a couple things. I'm choosing someone who can give me something over the one who can give me everything. There's nothing or no one that I can choose that is actually in comparison to my God. If you want to make a woman mad, cheat on her. If you want to make a woman contemplate killing you, cheat on her with someone who's not of equal or greater value. I've come to learn that. Now, it's not an experience I've had, but as a pastor and as someone of wise counsel, I've seen this scenario played out many times, where a brother will not only cheat on a woman, or vice versa. I'm not going to just put it on us, or a woman will step out on a brother. I'm going to be honest with you, though. Very rarely, y'all women, y'all know how to do it. Y'all, I'm going to say most times, choose greater value. I won't even say equal. It's usually greater value. Men, I don't know what's going on with us. Sometimes we, praise the Lord. But nevertheless, I've learned through these situations that, again, it's one thing for you to cheat on a woman. It's one thing for you to be unfaithful to a woman. But when you're unfaithful to a woman who doesn't, who doesn't bring as much to the table or more to the table over the one that you just left for, something clicks in their brain. And women, that's when they start busting windows out your car and slicing your tires up. They don't care about arrest charges. They're like, whatever, this man is crazy, and so I'm going to show him what crazy is. It is something about when you are unfaithful to somebody who's been so faithful with someone who's not even close. Yeah. And this is the situation we have with God. I remember, and Bishop would appreciate this one because this was his boo back in the day, Halle Berry was named the hottest woman in the world. Halle Berry. And us men, we learned a great lesson from this. If you didn't, shame on you. Halle Berry, named the hottest woman in the world. Listen, there are some fine women out there. My wife, I think she is fine as wine. But she's never been named the hottest woman in the world. She's the hottest woman in my world, but she's never been named the hottest woman in the entire world. Halle Berry was named the hottest woman in the entire world, and she was married to a brother named Eric Benet. Eric Benet, I want to say in 2001, thought it was a good idea to cheat on the hottest woman in the world. She tried to stick it out. For 2 years, she tried to stay with this man. But in 2003, she filed for divorce. I don't know why. I don't know what her reasons were. But I would assume that it had to be, I cannot tolerate competition. I cannot tolerate unfaithfulness. I've been too faithful to this brother to tolerate this competition or this unfaithfulness in my relationship. But I'm going to tell you the one thing every man was asking during that situation. How she look? To this day, I don't know how she looks. I even tried Googling it a few times. I don't know how this woman looks. But I'm pretty confident that most men would agree. She won't Halle Berry. She won't. She won't. Now, if that's the sort of reference we have for a mere woman, why don't we have that same reverence for God? Think about some of the stuff you choose over God. And then imagine, why would this not insult him? Some of us walk around with a device, a little smartphone. Small, it's a couple inches tall, maybe 6 or 7 inches tall, maybe 2 inches wide. This little smartphone. We give that smartphone more attention than the God of the universe. Think about that. Think about it. Okay, if you're a parent, let's see if I can make this plain. If you're a parent and you buy your child, matter of fact, this is a good example. Everybody wants the PlayStation 5 right now. Everybody. I mean, they robbing folks for it, beating them up. I've seen footage of folks getting beat up over a PlayStation 5. It's the hottest thing right now. I want you to imagine you have a child and you bought them a PlayStation 5. And you bring that thing home. And you set it down. And they open up the box. and they take out the PlayStation 5, and they take out the controllers, and they take out all the plastic and all the foam, and they take the box upstairs to their room and start playing with it, you're going to go crazy. Because you just spent all that money on a PlayStation 5, and they left the PlayStation 5 on the floor and took the box upstairs and started playing with it. And this is what God means when he said they would rather worship the creation than the creator. We worship creations more than we worship the creator. And there is no creation that compares to the creator. And so when we choose our phones, when we choose relationships, when we choose places, when we choose habits, when we choose smoking, drinking, when we choose these things, gossiping, lying, when we choose these things over God, we are, as I can attribute to Brother Jay-Z, we are Eric Benaing it. Turn this brother into a verb. Anytime you choose something over God, you are Eric Benaing it. You are downgrading. You're not moving forward. You're not progressing, but you're degressing. You're regressing. You're downgrading. And one of the most insulting things, sisters, y'all can help me out, is when he leaves you and don't upgrade. Now, I know some of y'all all that in a bag of Doritos, and so there's never anybody that he can leave you for that will be an upgrade. But go with me on this. There's somebody out there. You might not know him. There's somebody out there. But if he downgrades, I mean, noticeably, you ever seen a couple walking down the street and one of them's like a 10 and one of them's a 2, and you just start doing math and you're like, how does this work? That's what happens when we choose something over God. Something doesn't compute. Something has gone wrong, because how do you leave God for this? I want you to contemplate some of the things that you have chosen over God. Some of the things, some of the habits, some of the places, some of the persons, some of the things. And I want you to ask yourself a very simple question. If I choose this over God, is it insulting? And I'm pretty confident that there is nothing you can put on that list that if you were to choose it over God would not be an insult to him. So God's a little jealous, but he's jealous because he's so interested in you. And not only is he interested in you, but he was interested in you when you were ignorant of him. He had a Steve Urkel type of love for you, where it seemed like the more you did not want God, the more he wanted you. And I don't know about you, but I'm glad about it today, because I would not be standing here if God got fed up with me. I would not be standing here if God gave up on me. If I was as anti-God as Laura Winslow was to Steve Urkel, I probably would not be here. But I'm so glad that even when I was anti-God, he was still after me. My God is interested in me, and because he's interested in me, he's a little jealous, but not only that, he's invested in me. He's invested in me. I'm like a bad slot machine. He just keeps pulling on me, keeps pulling on me, keeps pulling on me, and he's never quite getting the cash out that he deserves, but he keeps pulling my lever. And there's somebody that's watching today, I want to encourage you that God is still pulling your lever. I know you missed a couple church services, but he's still pulling your lever. I know you don't make every Bible study, he's still pulling your lever. I know you don't pray like you need to pray. He's still pulling your lever. I know you don't love the way you need to love. He's still pulling your lever. I know you don't forgive. You hope you're harboring some unforgiveness in your heart right now, but he's still pulling your lever. He's still pulling your lever. He's still pulling your lever. And he's gambling. He knows that you're a bad bet, but he's a good God. And that's reason enough to shout right there. No matter how bad of a bet you are, it doesn't change the fact that he's a good God. He's invested in you. And last but not least, he's insulted by the alternative. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, that you can choose that will be in comparison. There's nothing you can choose that won't be a downgrade when you choose God. And I don't know about you, but I'm at a point in my life where I can't downgrade. It has to be all up. And so I'm going to stick with the God who's winning, the undefeated God, the God who heals, the God who sees me, the God who hears me, the God who keeps me, the God who provides for me, the God who was and is to come. I need a sure bet God, which raises the question, if God is so jealous for us, are we prepared to be jealous for him? Are we prepared to be jealous for him? I want you to remember the quote that I just shared with you. I value mystery. The unknown is what supports the tension of a relationship and forces us to be the best version of ourselves, the what-if factor. I'm going to raise the same question that Marie raised to Malcolm. Is there someone who loves your God more than you? Is there someone who worships your God greater than you? Is there someone who gives to your God more than you give? Is there someone who serves your God better than you serve? Is there someone who's devoted to your God more than you're devoted? And it's that what if factor that should make us wake up every morning and say, God, I don't care what I have to do, but I refuse to let anybody worship you like I worship you. I refuse to let anybody give to you like I give to you. I refuse to let anybody serve you the way I serve you. And listen, here's the thing. I may not be the best in the world, but I'm going to be the best me. Yeah, listen, this person might be able to pray me under the table, but hey, whatever, I'm going to keep praying because can't nobody pray to you like I pray to you. And all I might have is our Father who art in heaven, but I'm going to put some bass on that thing. I'm going to tremble in my voice with it. I'm going to sing it just a little bit because can't nobody pray to you like I pray to you. I'm going to be the best version of me for God. Why? Because God is always the best version of himself. Now listen, that's a spiritual word for some of us, but it's also a natural word for some of us. Are we the best versions of ourselves for our spouse or significant other? Are we like Malcolm, that we've gotten to a place of arrogance that we don't think they can do any better than us? And so for those of you who are in a couple or in a marriage, I want to encourage you that same premise has to start with God, because I can't be the best version of myself for my spouse or significant other if I'm not the best version of myself for God. But I want you to begin to allow that thing to challenge and trickle down to every aspect of your life. Every morning I wake up, am I the best version of myself? Marie says something very sad to Malcolm in that movie. As she shares this quote with him and says, you know, this is what forces me the best version of myself. And she says, the reason I put on that dress that I had on tonight is because I wanted to be the most stunning woman in the room, because I knew I was going to be in a room filled with actresses and models. But I was the one that's on your arm, and I refused to let anybody look better on your arm than me. It forced me to be the best version of myself. But she said, you know what, Malcolm? Because you're so arrogant and you don't think I can do any better than you, this is the best version of you I'll ever get. Because you refuse to try harder. Don't force God to settle for less than the best version of you. God loves you. His mercy endures. His truth is everlasting. But don't make God settle for a version of you that's not your best. How do I do that? Well, it starts by acknowledging, God, I haven't been my best. And this isn't just for the first time a person coming to Christ. This is for all of us. If we'll all be honest, if we'll all take inventory of our lives, we don't always wake up giving God our best. Some of us don't even wake up and give our jobs our best, if we'll be honest. Some of us should probably be surprised we get a paycheck on Friday some days. But God, I acknowledge I haven't been my best. I haven't given you all that I can give you. I haven't served you like I could serve you. I haven't loved you the way I could love you. I have not given you the best version of myself. But God, today, I refuse to make you settle for less than the best version of me. From this day forward, and feel free to make that your declaration, from this day forward, God, I will continue to give you the best version of myself, because in the back of my mind, I will always contemplate, as I'm worshiping God, is there anybody worshiping my God better than me? And it's not from a place of insecurity, but God, I just don't want to insult you. I just don't want to insult you.